Okay, so at this point you're all thinking, Jesus, those TIE fighters are crap. Those X-Wings are awesome! I mean, look at it. It looks about as fragile as your nan's favourite china. At least the X-Wing can take a couple of hits. The TIE fighter is pants against a blaster. The TIE fighter must be the least useful fighter in all of sci-fi. Well, dear viewer, you couldn't be further from the truth. The TIE fighter is one of the greatest science fiction craft of all time, and here is why. Hi all, it's Andy, and as some of you will have noticed, we are no longer TopTube. Behold, JABBA WAFFLE. TopTube starts out as a general guide to YouTube channels, but we kind of evolved and we discovered that you love our movie trivia videos, and being that I waffle a lot about sci-fi, the name JABBA WAFFLE seemed to fit. Like it, hate it, don't really care, it's here. Having published the Idiot's Guide to the Lightsaber the other week, we discovered there was a real interest in this. We got 181 hits after 2 weeks, which is awesome for us. Okay, Film Theory gets slightly better results, but you know what? We'll catch you, Matt Pat. We'll catch you. Anyway, being our most successful upload in terms of views over a couple of weeks, we decided that the world, or at least 181 of you, were crying out for straightforward introductions to various elements of the Star Wars universe. Think of them as Star Wars explained for Mr. and Mrs. Average. And why not? With Star Wars Last Jedi come to the cinema soon, you're likely to end up standing next to these guys, and perhaps it'll just be the excitement of the occasion, but they may try to spark a conversation with you. And you don't want to be stuck with little to say when asked, would you rather live on Endor or Yavin? Failure to answer such a simple question may lead to an uncomfortable silence, and these gentlemen, with a sense of superiority over you, yes, you, a normal person who just wanted to get the opportunity to see a science fiction film without being judged by an overweight virgin. Well, relax, my friends. These guys will help you. P.S. You want to live on Endor, if they ask. Being surrounded by cuddly teddies. So cute! Anyway, back to the task in hand. Today, the Idiot's Guide to the TIE Fighter. The TIE Fighter was by far the most common single-seater fighter used by the Empire, and is commonly underestimated by the general film-going public who witnessed how shockingly easy it was to destroy. However, do you seriously believe that the Imperial Empire, with all its wealth and resources, would invest in a pathetic fighter which could be outclassed by a herd of rebel scum? No way! If they doubted the TIE Fighter class, they would have just invested in a fleet of X-Wings. To really understand why the Empire, and later the First Order, opted for the TIE Fighter, we need to delve into the fundamentals of this astonishing vehicle. Okay, so let's start with the basics. The TIE Fighter is in a nutshell a compact short-range fighter. The distinctive wings are actually a pair of solar collectors and heat exchangers, whilst the central dome houses all vital systems, the cockpit, guns and engines. The TIE Fighter was packed with advanced sensors and communication antennas which coordinated with other fighters and Star Destroyers. This way the TIE Fighter squadrons moved like swarms. The cockpit is cosy to say the least, but then it wasn't intended for fighters to be flown for prolonged periods, unlike the X-Wing which could travel extreme distances, but because of this, the technology to look after pilots for prolonged periods was not necessary and therefore not included. This works to the TIE Fighter's advantage as it gives the TIE Fighter a faster rate of acceleration and manoeuvrability against the X-Wing, which has increased range, weaponry and shielding. Think of it as a wasp versus an eagle. The wasp will only take one hit, but it is far harder to catch. TIE Fighter stands for Twin Ion Engine. The ion drive is a form of electric propulsion which accelerates ions creating thrust. All which is needed is a power source. In the case of the TIE Fighter, these are the large iconic flat wings. Now, this may sound like science fiction, but actually it's very much science fact and in use today. Ion thrusters have a very low power consumption requirement and can propel ions up to 50 km per second. Unfortunately, the actual propulsion this generates is very small, around 250 millinewtons. To put that in perspective, the Rolls-Royce Trent engine can produce 430 kilonewtons, nearly 2 million times more thrust.
Fighters coming in!
The TIE Fighter is more commonly recognised as the traditional flat-wing fighter from Star Wars Episode 4. However, the label can be applied to numerous variations of TIE Fighters and bombers. The traditional fighter was known as the TIE LN. Every variant of Imperial Empire TIE Fighter was designed and manufactured by Senior Fleet Systems. Now, prior to Episode 4, the TIE Fighter was actually based on the ETA-2 Actis Class Interceptor as flown by the Jedi and built by Kuat Systems Engineering, or KSE for short. After the fall of the Galactic Republic in Episode 3, KSE suffered a significant market failure and Senior took over as primary contractor to the Empire. In Episode 4, Darth Vader flew a unique fighter. Most likely to make him stand out against other TIE fighters for the purpose of cinemagoers, the X-1 prototype was the foundation for the faster TIE Interceptors seen in Episode 6. The prototype had a basic shield generator and marginally more speed over the TIE LNs. It also had a hyperspace engine, otherwise it would never have gotten back to the Empire after the destruction of the Death Star. After the fall of the Empire and the rise of the New Order, the TIE Fighter continued production, but now by Senior Jameis Fleet Systems, presumably a merger. And with this merger came a new design philosophy. Get this: value pilots' lives. This led to a new direction. They decided to improve the shields on a regular TIE Fighter, now designated the FO class, and with a little more investment came the SF class for elite pilots, which featured life support and ejector seats. Also, the SF class featured additional seat for gunners and even had a hyperspace engine as standard. TIE Fighter pilots are a unique breed. Seriously, take note during the films, how many times do Rebel or Resistance fighters break off to assist each other? Pretty much all the time. How often do TIE fighters support each other? Never. Not once. Seriously, watch the films. Not once do any of them show any concern for one another. This isn't just psychopathy at work, but rather intense training and dedication to service. TIE Fighter pilots stick to particular flight formations and follow orders without hesitation. They are totally loyal and prepared to sacrifice themselves in the name of the Empire. With this intense focus and capability of the TIE Fighter, the Union is a devastating combo. They put themselves into incredible positions which would shit up any regular fighter pilot, even preparing to take the enemy with them. So whilst the film-going public laugh at the TIE Fighters, according to the story of Star Wars, a TIE Fighter squadron was the last thing you wanted to encounter. And with that, thanks ever so much for watching. We hope you enjoy our guide and have a little more respect for the TIE Fighter and their pilots. Please do subscribe and comment below. We're going to let you decide what guide do we do next. The Astro Droid, X-Wing or Millennium Falcon? We'll let the poll go for a couple of days before releasing the next guide, so until then, take care.